Welcome back to the most professional StarCraft 2 with the 9-time GSL champion, the Terran in the red, the man, the myth, the Maru. Facing off against his favorite punching bag, the Zerg in blue, we have Shin. In a best-of-5 Terran versus Zerg semi-finals to the $10,000 Global StarCraft League Tournament, the first of 2026. And before we get started, it'd be incredible if you could smash that like button or maybe even subscribe. Help me kind of the algorithm. And Jimmy, what are we at? 1,850 likes on this video, on this cast, and I'll cast another one. And I'll probably do it anyways, because I don't know what else I'd do with my life. But thank you for watching. Hopefully you've had a good day so far, and hopefully it's about to get just a little bit better. As the first Reaper comes in and pops 4 out of the 6 Lings, as Shin taking this very seriously, and Maru taking it even more so, as he takes out a Ling and a drone. 2 units, despite the fact Shin was focused on defending against them. And that's only 34 less than the count of series that Maru has won against Shin in a row over the last decade of StarCraft 2. 36 series. 36 wins for Maru. 35 as Terran, 1 as Protoss. But you know what they say? No one beat Shin 37 times in a row. At least we can maintain that fantasy to start things off. As the Reapers working around the edge, Shin did sneak out a drone, and the Reapers keeping the Lings at bay. That's a lot of Lings in production. Ye old Zerg rush to start things off and making sure that the Reapers are not able to just work on the other side of the map, but instead delays the command center. He just needed to cut the ribbon on it. But unfortunately for Maru, the Brenda bounce on the other side won't counteract it. The SCVs are being pulled off the line. One queen gets assassinated. But for the greater good, Maru manages to slip an SCV by. Zergling speed still painfully far off. A few more seconds, but already 2 SCVs dead. The Reapers still making him pay quite a toll. But Shin, on top of the SCVs, the working class pulled to the front line. 7 SCVs dead. It's an economic disaster for Maru as he plummets to a 2-worker lead, because obviously doing this was quite an investment for Shin early on. But Maru, it's Maru. He has 3 command centers done, of course. Somehow, some way, he manages to get there, but the Zerglings are tearing down the wall. There's no way to get inside the base. That's the oldest rule in the history of StarCraft 2. Don't let Zerglings in your base, and also don't put Shin up against Maru, but that one's a little bit younger. The Hellions come out, 7 more SCVs dead, and Shin finally justifies the cost of all those Zerglings. Delaying the command center was good. Killing the SCVs was better. Tearing down the wall and getting in the base was best. That is better than Shin could have ever hoped for. Maybe even dreamed of. And about as strong of a start as he could expect here on Winter Madness, which is also a great description of my commentary on a regular basis. But I digress. So Maru says, well, the only way to dig out of this situation is with as much economy and infrastructure as possible. He got 3 command centers, 2 racks, a factory, no starport, and now he's getting 2 engineering base. He's playing the long game right now, which is something that he is absolutely no stranger to. In fact, he might be most familiar. And, well, historically, against Shin especially, but almost everyone not named Cyril, the longer he waits, or the longer the game goes on, the more likely they are to make a critical mistake that Maru can take advantage of. But right now, he's already looking at an uphill battle. And while high ground advantage isn't that meaningful in StarCraft 2, it is something. And the Marine's going to look to deny any extra vision from the first Overlord, which will confirm that he flipped the barracks over and is working towards a Marine tank production. I'm not going to say timing. You can't just say timing attack to make it sound like you know what you're talking about. Even if it is a timing attack, it really depends. Then again, that's about 85% of all strategy games, and the other 15% is just making it up as you go along. Combined with 100% reason to remember the name, the numbers don't lie. And they spell disaster. One way or another. Enough about that. +1-1 for Maru. He's down 16 workers, but the mules will make up some of that ground. Just like the queen. Taken out, but the creep spread has begun, and Maru doesn't have much to help deal with it. The Hellions and Reapers are obviously helpful, but quite a risk putting him too far onto the creep, is right now behind it, there's a handful of Marines. And if Shin just did another big swell of Zerglings, he's not. But if he did, there's a real risk it could overrun the natural and completely rip apart any chances Maru had of dragging himself back into this. But Shin, I think, recognizing his advantage, it's never been his issue of understanding what the right play is. It's just sometimes it feels like he's physically unable to make it, especially against Maru. But he's got a 15-worker lead, some of the best grenades he could have possibly gotten. Maru trying to get the Hellions and Reapers out of there. But it looks like they're going to end up in the unit's loss tab eventually. The Reapers are sacrificed. The Hellions will escape. Blood for the Blood Gods. Skulls instead of bolts. The scan will spot the double Evo chamber, a single gas. Not a great informational coup, but giving Maru the information that it's probably not a rush to lair tech. It's probably not going to be Mutas. It's probably not going to be a quick hive. Though that's a little more likely if you're just going for Zerglings. It's going to be Hydraslings and Banes. Your bread and buttered biscuit for Zerg. And the most stable way to take advantage of a superior economy. With 69 drones, Shin's still in a very nice position. And you can't underestimate the power of hatcheries. Not as economy, but as production. Getting those hatcheries early, not even necessarily on mining locations, but instead, just in general, we already have a macro hatch in the main, is a big part of being able to capitalize on this sort of economic boom. Maru, on the other hand, building a 4th command center because of course he is. He's getting a 4th command center before he gets 4 barracks, which is Maru in a nutshell. Greed, and also greed. From the Department of Redundancy Department. And they'll expect one of us in the wreckage. Marines trying to work around the edges with the medevacs, but Maru with very little to work with besides them. There is no easy end here, but as the Hydras come out, it becomes more and more risky to stay on the field. The 2-2 upgrades for Maru are ahead, but not by such a margin that he can be comfortable maxing out and hitting a timing, but instead, Shin will be maxed out with Hydraling Bane, and the upgrades aren't too far behind. Maru will knock out some creep tumors and the queens. Come here, ladies. I hope you built up some energy. Brenda, don't sound so enthusiastic. It's weird. I can be excited. I'm allowed to be excited. Sorry. Blacked out for a moment. Infestation pit is on the way. That key part of unlocking the hive tech and potentially infestors themselves. Maru is one mediocre fight away from just dropping the game entirely. The Zerglings were never going to be the end, unless Maru just had a complete breakdown, but he's built himself back up. 4 Dropper Lords on the way, as Shin continues to metastasize across the map. The creep tumors multiplying in number. Caught between a rock and a hard place. The Banelings rolling through, but Maru picks it all up. So far, the drops have been an annoyance. They have dragged, they've anchored a significant amount of supply. But all this, it's not stalled Shin's production, not stalled his technological progress. It's, well, and now the Dropper Lords are loaded up. I don't know if Maru spotted them. And he's trying to dodge as well. There are some sensor towers, but the Baneling count, there are 134 Zerglings, and there would be more if he didn't have so many Banes. A Ghost Academy on the way at the same time as we see a Lurker Den. So Maru headed straight towards the end game. He's only had the double drops to defend. The sensor tower does not cover everything. He's about to spot the drops to the natural, and Maru is spread pretty thinly right now. He doesn't have ghosts. He's reliant on siege tanks. The upgrades are dead even. The drops dragging things back. The attack headed in towards the 4th base. A single Zergling. And the siege tanks are not enough to stop the Banes. He's going to use all this acid, easily neutralize the base, minimize the amount of Banelings exhausted, if he can. No reason to... And oh my! Adrenal glands! He didn't forget forever. And in fact, he tabbed through and Shin gets the most important attack upgrade for Zerglings. 40% more attack speed for the unit you sometimes make literally thousands of. You'd think it was a priority. And for every other Zerg it seems to be, but Shin, sometimes he finds himself in deep Shin and doesn't understand how to get out. So, also interesting, he's back under the tag Shin as opposed to Ragnarok. Well, if he beats Maru, then he can reclaim the Ragnarok title and possibly start to work on over 10 years of trauma. But quite a hill. And Maru adding more CCs than a angry corporate email chain. Shin adding more Nidus networks than a confused IT department on the same email chain. Maru is turtling up, and Shin is opening up options for breaking through. Thing is, Shin has 3/4 of the map, and he hasn't been cost ineffective. In fact, there's barely been any real engage. Okay, you're like, well, he lost twice as many resources, but barely any gas. That is, in so many ways, the defining characteristic. And with this many Zerglings and Banelings, 107 Zerglings, 27 Banes. We'll see if the Oversight Committee, the mass overseer style that Rogue favors. He's got 4 of them. We got an Ultraless Cavern. He's just going to get the whole tech tree. A whole shrubbery of tech. As he pulls out the Prima Strategy Guide and starts checking off boxes. Maru pulls out the... Whoa, Time Warp. Crazy. I'm sorry. Jimmy. Wild Time Warp there, but... The Ultraless Cavern on the way. The Spire as well. Is there anything he's missing? The Roach Warren is the only tech building he doesn't have at the moment, or have in production. And Roach is of almost negative value at this stage. Viper, outflanked by a missile turret, but gets a blinding cloud and will help knock out the base. A Nidus at the back. And Maru under siege, and the siege tanks are not enough to stop it. 1 Nidus, 2 Nidus. No red Nidus, but a blue Nidus, on the other hand, is incredibly dangerous. 1 will be shut down, but a 2nd will be unleashed, and there are lurkers in there. The first reveal, they'll burrow down. They don't have the quick burrow, but it might not matter. It mattered. It mattered a bit. Well, the lurkers, a ghost just popping out, and another attack down the front line. The Banelings rolling through, but not enough to break the base. The lurkers starting to become more entrenched. Another Nidus pops out, though there's not anything in it at the moment. He's scrambling back into the Nidus network. Brandon, no! The queens are popping out. What's happening here? He's kind of just feeding them. Shin, be careful. I don't need another 3-0. We need, you know, I can't run ads on a, well, with this game. I don't. Well, Shin on the cusp of feeding half of his army through the Nidus networks piecemeal, but he realizes that peace is not the sort of meal that he wants to eat. Yeah. Like and subscribe for more profound commentary along those lines. Keep cooking, Master Chef. Meanwhile, the Banelings, ghosts, no cloak. Though if they get close enough, the Banelings don't really care. Another planetary's taken out, but the planetary and the command centers themselves on the cheaper end of targets. Obviously important to deal with them. You need to prevent Maru from mining. But compared to the cost of... Ooh, well, Shin is now mining from... He has 99 drones. But... We'll see. But he's got some problems. Like breaking Maru. There are 2 schools of thought. The school of attrition, and then the school of attrition. One of them is capitalized, the other one is all caps. Wow. We are getting real confusing and even less profound. What I mean is there's the 300 supply Zerg, where you say, I have twice as much income, so I can hit you with twice as many units. And even if I lose twice as much, as long as you're not able to mine eventually, I win. And then there's the school of attrition of broodlords and infestors, and more even money, where you play for the extreme late game and make it almost impossible for a Terran in a mediocre position to break out. And right now, Shin is leaning towards quantity, having a quality all its own. He's another 2 Niduses in the main. Maru has a campaign level of setup, but a double Nidus. The Ghosts, there are 12 Ghosts, only 18 Marines, 14 Siege Tanks, but Shin is setting up on 3 different sides. The Niduses will pop out. He's just going to knock them out. Instead, a full attack over to the left flank. The Venn diagram of freedom. Is there building armor? Dangerously close, but 16 SCVs dead. But look at the banks. Shin, despite mining 4,000 minerals and 1,300 gas a minute, he's losing about that number as well. The Changelings getting shut down. He's now got 13 Overseers, 82 more Zerglings in production, putting him solidly into triple digits. The Parasitic Bomb on the Medevacs quarantines one quickly. Awkward. Well, interesting direction. Optimistic. Can I park here? They never tell me anything. Calm down, Sarge. Nidus in the back. The Marines, the Nidus defense team, still on point. That set of rocks is really making it difficult for Shin to come down reliably. As Maru struggling to remax out. Though he has... that's a building tab and a half. 6 orbital commands, 3 undecided command centers, several planetary scattered throughout, the SCV's on the run, another Nidus in the main, the Nidus defense team. I think Mo just hit the select all army hotkey. Indeed he did. And the Nidus in the main, the Ghosts are finally coming back to defend. We've got the tactical Nidus, but this one is gonna come through. Though that many Ghosts with Cloak may actually just... yeah, that's enough. But the Ghosts are out of position then. Knocks out the Overseer as well. Another Nidus, this one just for reinforcing. As Shin playing the Zerg right now. Though again, he doesn't have that much in the bank. We aren't quite at the bean counter. Oh my, that positioning. The Zerglings trickling one at a time through a Nidus. Which, it doesn't matter what's in there. It all comes out at the same speed. Which is both gross and profound. Much like my commentary sometimes. Again, the Queens jumping to spread the creep and maybe a little bit too actively. 3 more cut down, leaving him with just 1. Finally, my time has come! That's not... No one can tell... Wow. Shin has queued up injects and creeped... Yeah, big job. 18 SCVs dead. The biggest issue, I think, will be the lack of queens for Shin. As he has 10 hatcheries. So the natural larva production, which maxes out at 3 per hatch, might be a deciding characteristic. The Vipers, the Oversight flock here, the Mass Overseer, more Lings and Banes, the Ghosts, line up the shots, pop out of the Vipers. Another command center is forced to the north. The Liberators. So, Shin has not neglected flyer attack upgrades. He's got +2 flyer attack completing momentarily. Just finished +3 missiles for the Hydras. And technically Lurkers, though I don't think any of them remain. The Overseer's still coming in, but Maru has not yet been able to stabilize. And honestly, I don't know if he ever will at this rate. This may come down to whether Shin mines out before he can totally break Maru. It's because Maru spent all the resources on his first 3 bases, just trying to get his 4th and 5th. The EMPs hit mostly Overseers, which is marginally helpful. The Banelings rolling through, but another command center. The Banelings, woo, a dangerous position for both sides. Another Nidus at the back, the Changeling! Marauders stimming back to defend! A Siege Tank getting into position, but this could be an important one. A couple Marauders. Shin successfully. I mean, he's keeping the pressure on. The double Nidus is taken out. A few Zerglings will trickle in. He burrows them. I don't know if Maru noticed. Oh, he did. Yeah. Another attempt. Shin with over 600 APM to Maru's leisurely 450. And and a single infestor. One infestor to unburrow and from the darkness bind them. Something to hold these ghosts down so maybe he can knock them out. Blinding Cloud. Hydraslings and Banes. Shin's bank is building to monopolistic levels. It's not so far... Well, without the infestors, the ghosts are eventually so obscenely cost-effective. Shin has still lost 13,000 more resources, but almost all of them minerals. Another Nidus in the main, the Zerglings trickling through. The target fires a good more Niduses on the way. And he gets the siege tank. The ghosts are coming back to defend, but most importantly, they're out of position. Parasitic bomb on the front line. Maru trying to hold. He's really trying to get this base to the north. He's running out of mineral patches. Shin has successfully mined, almost without fail, throughout the majority of this. The Zerglings are running through. And Shin, again, pushing Maru back. Is that enough Banelings to knock this out? He has building armor, which is not that helpful against Banes. He pulls one of the display command centers over. But another couple Niduses in the main. There's the Overseer, and the siege continues. Maru, I don't know if he's maxed out the entire game. Maybe once or twice for a few moments, as Shin does so again. He's still only got one queen, but apparently that's enough. When you have 10 hatcheries and are consistently trade... Well, there goes the infestor. And confirm not Cyril. He's not bothering with that anymore. We got a smorgasbord of units now. He's got a Congress of Corruptors. He's got a dozen Overseers. We've got 4 Lurkers. We got 6. It's just so much everywhere, pretty much all of the time. But here we go. The Lurkers are going to be quite a conundrum. Denies the mining on the left. Maru has to go forward, because at this point, going back is getting more and more difficult. He gets caught in the corner. Goes right through the rocks. The blinding clouds are helpful. Are they helpful enough? Maru trying to clean up the Lurkers, but Shin is breaking through the front. He knocks out the Liberators. There will be no oversight here. Meanwhile, the Lurkers are slicing through the defenses. The Corruptors working towards it. Maru coming back forward again. The army supply still in his favor marginally. The Ghosts light up their snipes. The Vipers knocked out of the sky. The Corruptors working on the Medivacs, but the Ghosts hold the line and drive the Zerg back. Too many snipes, too quickly, and 7 Ultralists in production. 3 Infestors, but they have yet to be delivered. And he did start the upgrade, Shin. They're gonna be paperlisks. But sometimes, again, quantity has a quality all its own. And your mother's very high quality. 7 Ultras. Shin holding for now. Maru pulling it all together. But this might be the best opportunity he has, especially. He doesn't know the Ultras are in production, but he knows it's not nothing. He's trying to break forward. The Knight is shut down in the main. The Lings and Banes. And the Ultras pop it out. He wants to defend the rich Vespine base. Maru's now mining with mules from the north side. Coming in again. He never took down the rocks. Shin never took down the rocks, but here we go. The Ultra slicing through. A few snipes. Interrupts the Ghosts. And the Venn diagram of freedom. Oh no! The Ultralisks! Shin. Well, a single fungal and a couple Overseers are knocked out of the sky, and Shin goes for paperlisks at this late hour, and they just exploderated by the Ghosts. This is one of the most anti-Ultralist army you can even build as Terran. But Shin is now, well, he's drained his entire bank. He threw it all into Ultras. He's betting it all on the Ultralist. Shin has had the lead for the entire game. And he still does, but he used to too. But Maru is now mining with Mass Mule. The income, the Mule Mountain is climbing out of the depths of economic ruin. And the stimulus checks have come in. And Maru might have a new breath of life, whereas Shin, his is leaving quickly. But the Infestors, he's looking for the Ghosts. He's not finding them. The Infestors are just obliterated by the siege tanks, but the Ghosts are almost entirely out of energy. There's no energy left for the snipes. Is it needed? I mean, there's enough energy left for a couple snipes. The Ultras just kind of wandering through, and again, the SCVs will die. The Ghosts lining up so many shots. 69,000 to 45,000 resources lost. There's still just one queen. Finally, I love it when a plan comes together. This was your plan? Shin has managed to spend his way through most of the map's resources. And now... Shit. Another base. The 25th Nidus Worms are now in the main. 25 of them at 75 apiece. He's lost so many Overseers. 19 Niduses. The math is not checking out on that one. Oh, wait, he still has some scattered throughout, I think. But the double Nidus, there's nothing in it, but it's on top of the siege tank. So that didn't help to deny it. It's just that Maru, he defended the Ultras. Shin lost the fight, but he may be winning the war still because of it. It cost him so much to break through those Zerg that he may simply never recover. He's working off of 1 1/4 bases. The Niduses are just... Go Nova! Use the artifact! Even a drone? Honestly, Shin probably does not have use for 87 drones at this point. There's not enough mineral patches, not enough gas geysers. And he just lost a couple of them in the corner. The main base! Abandon your post! Flee! Flee for your lives! The barracks are in flight. Maru in purgatory right now. Shin has managed to maintain the momentum. And despite the extreme losses, another fungal, the infestor, just wanders through the fray, but through all the fire and fury, Maru is down 100 supply. I don't think he's getting back up. After one, holy mother of mercy. Sweet, sweet Kerrigan. 1,330 Zerglings and counting. That may be a record. 115 banelings, and I do have to explain that is the banelings that died before attacking, because they don't show up in units lost if they attack, because they succeeded then. They weren't lost. So it could be even more. Shin is broke, but Maru is nearly broke in. His production, the main base is full of creep with Nidus Worms still there. Drones? Technically there's a couple mineral patches in Maru's main, though I doubt they have much more than a pittance of minerals. Another base, Shin very close to mining correctly on those drones. And the income, Maru, he put his head above water for a moment. The mules dragged him into that position. The snipe, and he can't see to keep those infestors alive, but 3 more hatcheries on the way, which is a significant portion of his income. Or, I mean, his total resources. Shin, he's mined nearly 30,000 more minerals. Only 3,000 more gas. That is almost 3 bases of minerals and a base of gas, just about. Maru has to rebuild his engineering bay for turrets. His orbital command, he still has 5 orbital commands, though one of them is in flight right now. And there's just not enough units. He's stuck in pretty much the same spot he's been for 20 minutes. And he can't stay there much longer. Shin has retaken all the bases we fought so hard over. This set of rocks may finally die incidentally as the banelings are taken out, which probably should have been done earlier. But it's too much. He's knocked them all out. There are no more tanks. The last planetary. And Shin, the Ultras, they looked like they may have been the greatest throw in the history of this Major League Baseball pitcher's career. But instead, Maru has been battling from the very start, from his awkward and honestly painful disregard for the danger of Zerglings. Shin, after 1,462 Zerglings, after 84,000 resources to just 61. After 30 minutes, he claims victory. By that much. By the skin of every Zergling ever built's teeth. And they got some weird, dangerous teeth, I assume. What did it cost? Everything! But he burned his future for a sunrise he may never see. But so far, Shin's score is rising. Well, after one of the most excruciating, though also satisfying, so fun in all the right ways, games that I've ever seen. Well, Shin shows he can hang with Maru. Some big asterisks there of he had the decisive, overwhelming advantage for the entire game. But that's happened before. That is not a unique occurrence with Shin versus Maru. And almost without fail, Shin finds a way to turn the tables on himself. And honestly, I don't know what Maru could have done better. That was the sort of conclusion that, like, he was fighting the highest percentage play the entire time. He was hoping that Shin, as Zergs in general, and Shin specifically will almost always do, takes that fight that's just not quite good enough. And then Maru can reclaim enough of the map and keep him going. It's just that fight came too late. Somewhat amusingly and unsurprisingly, it was with the first Ultras. So Shin, I think another key point, Shin made a Greater Spire. He was thinking about Broodlords, but he never made them. And based on how the life expectancy of those infestors, I think that was a good call. Game 2, Mothership. 3-player map. Fortunately for Shin, his Overlord had the wrong direction to start. The 50-50 not working out in his favor. Maru hedging his bets as well. Goes command center first, because of course he did. Of course he did. The Zergling speed on the way. The Reapers were both wildly successful and the beginning of the sideways trajectory of Maru's build. Just totally unprepared for the follow-up Zerg rush, which, if you look at the worker count, if Shin did not, it was so lackadaisical on the SCVs to not repair the depot with multiple, but it's such a huge risk to build another like 8, 12 Zerglings, because every couple Zerglings you build could have been a drone. That's how it works. Investing in a lot early and not getting anything done is just hamstringing your economy. So he needed to get damage, and oh boy, he did. Three CC. Shin with the third as well. We're gonna have the full-on macro start, about as now, if only you could get to these, like juicy minerals here. Those are display minerals. Not allowed to touch them. Double engineering bay. Maru with... It's not the same build, obviously, but the trajectory will be very similar. 3cc, double upgrades, later starport. Gonna be skipping the sort of banshee phase of the game that a lot of Terrans like to use, but lately, Shin especially has been going for quick lair against Terran. We didn't see it last game because of the topsy-turvy start, but I wouldn't be surprised to see it, especially if the queens finish up here. There it is. Lair. Just after 4 minutes, and a roach one on the way. So on the quicker side of things, not a rush, but not slow. Like a power walk towards lair. As the Hellions, gets a grab, Reaper Grenade. And one of them manages to grab it by the wheels. There's a few Marines, but it's just enough to make him think twice or thrice about it. Maru just going into that 3-2-1-1 with the double upgrades as well. It's one of those things that if Shin knew exactly what Maru was doing, he could kill him with roaches. But the reason you can't go for an early all-in without risking the game is if they simply go Banshee, it does negative damage. What I mean is, even if you kill some SCVs, you've invested so much of your economy, and the Banshee will not only defend, but it now gives you even more aggressive potential. So the threat of a Banshee, which until this moment, actually got off the ramp earlier, could have done it. 57 drones, he's building roach speed. There's a chance here, but we're well past that phase, and he already knows it's going to be Marines and Medivacs. Shin going for the brute force roach style. A real battering ram sort of counterattack style, where the best defense is a good offense against Medivac. He keeps Maru at home, ideally, by forcing him to commit all his forces to defending. Because you simply, like, roaches do not age well. It's just their sheer quantity that keeps them alive, which is lore accurate as well, as I understand, and hope never to learn, but... And did somebody call for an exterminator? No, not at this point. Ghost a long way off and not so great against Roach Ravager. Did he spot? Maru saw the Roach Warren. He saw one get. He knows this is a Roach timing, which is likely why the Medivacs are staying so close to home. He is not taking any chances that the Roaches come swinging in while half his army supply is across the map. Hello? Well, I thought he'd turn around, but he actually takes the fight. Loses a few Marines, but cuts out several Roaches. Maru already has 1-1 done. He doesn't have combat shield, which is kind of a huge deal, but the SCVs are pulled, and before the Zerglings get here, he's trying to thin out, cut the wheat from the chaff. Maru's milling and killing, but... Well... That did not go great for Shin. At least on the front side of it, but behind it. 80 drones. He's been droning since before he sent those roaches across the map, which leaves him with very little back home to defend. But it's kind of the reverse of Maru last game, where he had an awkwardly small economy and went for the full greed. And now it's Shin's turn to try to do an economic boom and just defend for long enough to let that kick in. The problem is, very quickly Maru can go from defense to offense with the power of Medivacs and those boosts. And now just tearing through the roaches. For 1-1 against just +1 Carapace, it's not enough. And the drones can be targeted. The Ravagers, honestly, that's not that much in front of him. 12 drones dead, picks up. And unless he gets hit by some sort of suspiciously good corrosive biles, he's just going to play keep away, do the hokey pokey, and drop them all about. The Marines just slicing through the Zerglings. The Roaches are not enough. The drones, and he's targeting the Evolution Chamber. +1 ranged attack. Maru heading towards a 3 upgrade advantage with that snipe on +1 ranged. And any sort... okay. Shin almost literally shooting himself in the face. But... the mobility of the Medivacs and the utility of the upgrades just making this look more one-sided than a Mobius strip right now. 21 drones dead. The upgrade denied. Maru now finishing +2 armor alongside his +2 infantry weapons. The numbers don't lie. And they're really spelling disaster for Shin. He's got a hive on the way. Vipers, likely the first choice. And he's got to line up for another timing. He's got to get something done soon. Because if he doesn't go now, it's going to be difficult to go ever. 2 Vipers in production. Baneling speed on the way. But Maru's got 2-2 done. He's already working on 3-3. He's got 4 siege tanks. He's going to get into a pretty nasty position to start things off. Backing off. Maybe snipes off 1. Gets a medevac for his trouble, which is quite convenient. But Maru stepping past. The medevacs are knocked down by a shotgun blast of corrosive bile. So Shin getting a bit more damage than he probably even hoped for, but the Zerglings taking out some SCVs at the back. The reinforcements not quite enough to clear them out quickly. But the multi-tier... No! The Baneling dust! Oh, 3... 1 second away. The Banelings gonna be blue-balled, somewhat ironically. The speed will not complete. He doesn't have any Banelings and won't for a while yet. And the siege tanks are still pounding their way through. Shin has a 30 supply lead, but it's mostly in the Roach Ravager with their incredibly mediocre upgrades. Shin will survive, as the corrosive biles raining down did a surprising amount to knock out 4 medevacs dead, 3 siege tanks. But Maru has a 13-worker lead. He has a 2-upgrade advantage, and at some point against the Roaches and Ravagers, it could be a 5-upgrade advantage, which is just obscene. At that point, they're not even in the same weight class. Shin is scrambling, hoping that Maru does the same thing that Maru was hoping Shin did last game. An attack so devastatingly inefficient that he can turn it around. Yes, Shin has a 40 army supply lead. Yes, Shin has Vipers. But make no mistake, he has to get something done soon. Because things like this, the triple drop at the back, Maru will force the issue. The blinding clouds are good. And every single tank completely blind. The SCVs are pulled. Best case scenario for Shin. And we'll knock out all the siege tanks, but the Marines and Marauders are tearing through back at home. Maru will retreat to the natural. Shin is losing most of his base. The Ultramus Cavern is on the way. Another way to potentially turn this game sideways. Corrosive Biles, he's trying to break through, but the concave is too damn good. There's a planetary fortress to the north. And Shin is down to 2 bases. The reinforcements, the Queen's trying to patch it together. The Viper is knocked out of the sky. The Roaches and Ravagers picked off 1 by 1. It's now 3-3 versus +2 Carapace. And it's now 1-1 versus 1-0. Maru claims the game and ties it up 1-1. For a few moments, Shin looked dangerous. But the medevacs just so quickly capitalize on that sort of mobility advantage in Maru. The Marines and Marauders, and you can't spell Marauders without Maru. Which, sounds profound. A lot of that going around. And Maru just going to town. And Shin is lost and Maru is found. And maybe lets out a lament. A melancholic sound. As Shin now, the Zerg going down. But can he turn it around? Turn that frown upside down. As Tourmaline, the potential map where we see who goes up and who looks like a clown. I am a rapper of some renown. Like and subscribe. And other fun nouns. Those were verbs. Buy it down. Game 3. Tourmaline. Pretty wide open map. Well, I say that, but we see so many drawn out macro games here that maybe that's a bit misleading. Wide open map almost. Honestly, the closer we get to Iowa, the better Zerg does. A wide open field with very little in between. But maybe a gas station or 2 and some corn, but they thrive on corn, surprisingly. That's not always the case, but especially the style of the quantity-based Zerg that Shin has demonstrated in 2 games in a row to mixed success is much better the more space you have to work with. If you're more comfortable with later game spellcasting, so Cyril, then maps with better choke points or more conventionally defensible bases can be better, but usually Terran is better suited to taking advantage of sitting in their base and being upset that Zerg exists. Honestly, that's sometimes the Zerg feel as well, but I digress. Reaper. Just one. Headed across. Not a command center first this time. We're going to the most standard fare. The fact that Shin is building 6 lanes is usually you. So close. Churlish and insubordinate, chicanerous and deplorable. Brenda, could you stop yelling at the Reaper? I can't. I gotta let my passion out. I don't. Why? Because I'm pretty useless otherwise. That's not true. Come on, Brenda. You're useless too. Now, don't bring me into this. We're identical twins. I don't. Sorry. Hive mind took over. Resistance is few. Roach Warren on the way. Now this is a cheese. The stench of cheese upon the air. Building a Roach Warren this early. Banking up 200 gas. It's a Ravager all in. He needs to get some damage done, but for the first time, Shin might be recognizing that Maru has not gone for bad cheese. He just keeps going for 3 CC, Marines, and maybe a tank, and a couple Hellions, of which Roaches just kill you. You're just, if he does a Roach all in, you're mostly dead, if not entirely dead. Except for once, Maru has gone for the tech lab on the starport. He's building a Banshee. The Hellions look like they might dart in for a moment. I don't think he was prompted by anything. It's just one of those builds you rotate into the mix. Most players will put it as the majority of the time, but Maru, I think, getting the better end of the build order exchange so far. Though neither player knows it quite yet. Maru will spot the roaches. He sees them on the other side.
Complete.
And he caught a glimpse. Shin was trying to run all the way around. Around the outside. But the Hellion spotted it. And now where are you going? He's already building drones behind. The Banshees trying to box out. Shin taking the scenic route. And has decided that if this got... it was scouted technically on his side of the map. Which means the likelihood of this being successful drastic go down. So... decides to just sit back with the Sloaches and defend. But we all know he wanted to... He had so much gas, like... He wanted this to be a Ravager all-in. It didn't come together. Maru already with double medevac on the way behind it. A single Banshee. Just enough. The deterrence Banshee here, remarkably successful already. Which is why I remarked on it. But... Oh, hi, Mar. Needs to know. Road speed on the way is Shin. A very different sort of scenario. Maru won't have nearly the level of infrastructure. He won't have his upgrades and his production at such a overwhelming state. But at the same time, Shin is on a relatively low economy. He's trying to shore that up now. His upgrades will be a bit behind. But again, Maru with only 1 engineering bay. Which, only 1 upgrade at a time. Basic math again, coming in handy. Infestation pit very quickly. Thinking about a quick hive behind this. Occasionally we see swarm hosts. I see no reason why we would see them here. Swarm hosts just not good unless they're entirely reliant on siege tanks in an entrenched position. They suffer from the major weaknesses that roaches do against medevacs. So, Maru, he's got his second engineering bay. It'll be interesting to see what Shin does with the hive. Like, ultralisks. Oh no. It'll be interesting to see what Shin does with the hive. Yeah, thank you. Was dancing with the Reaper Hellion at the front. The single Banshee. I think it killed a creep tumor so far. And this is restricted lair space. You can't be here. Brenda, remember when we could fly? Shut up, Susan. Shut the front hatchery. Oh, very good, Brenda. Sorry, I a mess. Shin, the roach count is at an awkward number. It's enough to be dangerous. And, well, the Roach Ravager, a wave of Banelings. He does not have Baneling speed. Just built 19 Banelings, which could put him in a very awkward spot against 3 siege tanks, though the first volley comes out, knocks out 1 tank, but the Marines doing a lot of damage very quickly to the hatchery down the center. The Banelings waddling past, picks up. The hatchery's taken out, though, and objective complete. Maru, happy enough. He's got a 4th command center on the way. The scan, he has not yet spotted the base over to the left side at the 9 o'clock position, but he's headed off with some medevacs, and with the siege tanks back at home, he's clearly intending on splitting the difference. Gonna have the medevacs on offense and enough siege tanks entrenched to hold the line. The Viper's coming out. The Viper's the crowbar of Zerg. Blinding Cloud to mostly deny the siege tanks and then abduct, since you can't abduct siege tanks anymore because they're too, and I quote the patch notes, dummy thick. I'm paraphrasing a bit, but abduct for liberators can be useful. Not that, well, 1 in production now, so as before you get a Spire, the Liberators become more and more of a difficult proposition to deal with. The Marines tuck it into the corner, try to take some trades, but eventually will pick up and get out, slurped up by the medevacs. Adrenal glands on the way. Shin, not the quickest, but not slow. The Banshee still just a constant annoyance. The creep, mediocre at best. Barely outside of the bases. As another queen gets picked off, Maru knocks out another base. I don't think there was a cancel over there. Maru's nearly maxed out. There's an Ultralisk Cavern on the way. As Shin once again reaching for that ground base to Zerg. But the hatchery down the center is popped yet again. That's 3 in total. Yeah, definitely didn't cancel in the 6 o'clock. 2-2 upgrades. +2 Carapace about to complete for Shin. +2 melee attack is a long way off. Whereas Maru's +2 infantry weapons and armor is pretty close to completing. Shin, it's a pretty good time to go. And if he wants to, it has to be soon, as otherwise it's just time to wait for the Ultras. Chitinous plating is on the way. He doesn't really have enough gas to replace a lot of this with the Ultralisk, and he's sitting back with an army that is not so great on defense. The Banelings rolling through, though. Widowmine, a single Widowmine wipes out the majority of the Banelings. But he holds on to the energy. He yanks in a Liberator out of siege mode. Knocks out another siege tank. The Liberator as well, double kill on both siege units simultaneously. And Shin doing a good job of prying apart the early defense. He keeps the Vipers alive. Ultralisk in production. Maru on 4 bases. 5th command center is on the way. And 2 more being built out at the front. He's maxed out. 2-2 upgrades done. He will take a slight advantage on that front. There are no infestors in production, so no easy way to hold these units down. He's just relying on the quantity of Zerg to hopefully overwhelm eventually. But Shin actually lost Overlords. He's at 186 over 184 supply. which is not ideal. And the attacks, as time goes on, of constantly having overseers and trying to keep them alive it's a concern. As most Zerg players struggle with it, the more and more late game we get to. But for now, another Widow Mine, big hits, but the Banelings are caught behind, which is a good thing in this case. Blinding Cloud on the Siege Tank yanks out the Liberators, dismantles the Venn diagram of freedom. Blinding Cloud of the Planetary and the Siege Tank alike. Cutting his way through, bit of an awkward engagement, knocks out his own Ultralisk with Corrosive Bile, not that it was long for this world either way. A few Zerglings on the base to the north. Planetary is on the way, but a long way off for the SCVs currently being ripped apart. Shin up 30 supply maxed out against 170 Maru. Ghosts in production. 5 at a time. The weapons of mass production for Maru. The tanks struggling to get out of the base, but eventually meander their way through the factorial level of setup. The Blinding Clouds. The Viper. Planetary Fortress. Widow Mine knocks out some Banelings. Planetary holding for now. 12 kills, adding so much damage. He still hasn't killed the planet. The Ultra, he's targeting it. The Ravagers as well, but the Planetary holds. And Shin will lose a devastating fight. He does take out a big chunk of the army, but he lost so much, and he did not get the Planetary. He did not get a critical mass of SCVs, and the ghost count is growing. Shin is repeatedly beating himself against the wall, slamming the head of the Ultras into the Planetaries, and it's getting more and more difficult to see it being successful. The attack to the north, but the Zerglings to the south will distract Maru maybe for long enough. He gets a volley off, chops through a Planetary. It will cost 2 Ultras, but denying the mining in general is exactly what Shin needs. Meanwhile, a drop at the back. The Ultra's on defense. There's enough energy for parabombs. Throws them out. They don't stack, but it's enough damage to take out a medevac if it's not quite at full HP. One medevac taken down, 12 SCVs, and Shin, the income is swung back and forth with the mules dropping and returning. The seesaw continues, using the Vipers to try to break through. And Shin, the ghost count is growing, and the chances of Ultras being the decisive unit are inversely proportional to the amount of ghosts on the field, especially with the Liberators and Siege Tanks to help back them up and thin the Zerglings and Banelings out. Trying to, well, I'm not sure if that was the most efficient way to deal with the mine. He does have Drilling Claws, no building armor, nor high-sec auto-tracking for those late-game building upgrades. Even Planetary range with high-sec auto-tracking might be helpful. Honestly, missile turret range against the Vipers. Maru's still on defense, but he has a similar bank. And oh wow, that's a lot of Zerg. Here we go. The Blinding Cloud. Missile turret almost takes out a Viper, but Blinding Cloud's all the way to the back line. The acidic shield of the Banelings helping break through. He just chews through the Planetary Fortress. The Ultra's chopping down. Mr. Zergachev chew down this wall. And Shin rips apart another base. And Maru will make him pay a bloody toll. But we have to ask ourselves that question. Have you liked and subscribed? And at what cost? Tengos. He's building more Ultras. 5 Infestors on the way. Acknowledging that at some point, he needs to do something about the ghosts. Even if he gets through the Planetaries, there's always another command center. He knocks out the siege tanks. There's always more ghosts. He deals with the Liberators. And the Widow Mines are still a threat. He needs the fungal. Hello? What? What, Brenda? You said fun gal? You've already used this joke. Well, there are new people here, and I'm a fun gal. Let's do some stand-up comedy today. You know I only sit down. That's not very healthy. I don't need this from you. Sorry. Like and subscribe for Existential Dread. The Infestor. Not exactly the ideal scout. And that gives away the Infestors, which is not ideal. Usually the first fungal is the most important. And that still may be true. But the simple fact that Maru knows about the Infestors now is a huge part of this. In fact, the Marauders, wow, just pops the Infestor like an overripe tomato. Maru hardening his defenses and making it more and more difficult for Shin to break through. Shin with less in the bank. The ghost count still at 10. The Marauder count also another... Okay, that wasn't an infest, it was a roach. Somehow some roaches. There's still 3 roaches and 3 ravagers. The Spire is on the way. There's only a single Liberator. He hasn't really had a need for Mass Corruptor or something, but he needs something. As Maru is becoming more and more cost efficient. Oh, not the Widow Mines again. The Bio Balls rolling down as the Banelings barely roll through. Maru again struggling to ever move out. But Shin struggling to officially move in. Greater Spire is on the way. The Ghost. The income. Shin now has a couple more mining bases. He needs to get the gas to those bases as soon as possible, as that's clearly been the struggle throughout. The creep finally reaching about halfway across the map. 2 more factories on the way as Maru queues up 4 more command centers. That late game investment. Once you get at least 5 orbital commands, you always have a scan if you stagger them. Though mules are obviously kind of an important part. He only has 4 orbitals right now, which is tenuous. Oh, the Marauders step a little bit too far forward on the move command. An Infestor with full energy grabs a few more. And the Widow Mines are dragged over the top, but the Overseers run out of momentum. Well, a strong start, but a more painful end to that army as Shin continues. Oh, another Infestor almost strays into the scan. Building more turrets to zone things out at the front. Shin is now mining from both of the corner bases, 3/4 of the way to a bingo win here, but I think Maru's main. Well, Maru's main no longer is. He's still got the production there, but the command center moved on a while ago. Full energy on both Vipers and Infestors. Blinding Cloud shuts down one of the tanks. The Snipes. He's looking to knock out the Overseers. And then he can cloak the Ghosts and move through, but the Banelings are still a threat. Either way, he will cloak the Ghosts. The Banelings, all they have to do is be close. Throws out a fungal. Meanwhile, the SCVs are being eviscerated while the Ghosts are on the run. And Sarge, they're doing it again. Damn, that's a Zerg hatchery right there, Lester. That thing's almost as large as your mother, Sarge. What do we say about being hurtful, Lester? I don't... Meanwhile, the Ultra is trapped in a prison of Banelings design. Maru tried to turn the tables, but he took so much damage. The sheer amount of Banelings, again. It feels like Maru keeps winning battles, but losing the war. As Shin is refilling with a little bit of everything all the time. Ultras, Overseers, Zerglings. He's got Infestors scattered beneath. Overseers above. And the sheer amount of units. He's drowning under the tide of Zerg. It's unclear where it's gone wrong, but it hasn't quite gone right. And that one Infestor underneath. Knocking down some of the Liberators. The Siege tanks tying up the Ultras, but there's just not that much behind here. The Infestor unburrows this center base. Been a contest on both sides. The Ultras fighting through the streets of the base. A fungal will hold down the army. And the Banelings roll through, melting through a critical mass of Maru's Marines and Marauders. The Ghosts line up their shots. But Maru is down nearly 100 supply again, which considering Shin is maxed out is not a good sign. And also considering any scenario where you're down 100 supply is never a good sign, but I digress. The Ultras cutting through the dregs of the economy. Maru at 21 SCVs, 85 supply. And I think Maru will be the first one to fall and be one game from elimination. Shin has not been cost effective, but he has been effective. 10,000 more minerals mined, 2,000 more gas. He spent most of it on the attack, and he's willing to spend more. The Ultras just chopping through the base. They cannot be ignored. And now Maru may have to acknowledge them. A GG of Ultralisks. The Ghosts have been incredibly good, but they're almost out of energy, and they're nearly out of life. The Ultras chewing through, the Banelings rolling past. GG! Shin 1 game away from breaking possibly the longest streak in StarCraft 2 history. Now, we've been here before. Sometime in the last 36 series that Shin has played against Maru. But it's not over, certainly. Shin stuck with his guns against Maru's. Eventually getting the infestors, never overcommitting. And Maru just drowning. We're going to Old Republic. Shin, match point. Maru, what are you doing? What? You're doing proxy? No. No. Shin, oh Shin. You wouldn't proxy hatch. Like, you just drone scout. No, nobody drone scouts. It's just, the math doesn't work out. What? Well, this is certainly something. My gabbers are flasted. I can't believe it. I'm not saying it can't work. Proxy Rogue has demonstrated how proxy hatches are, Oh, but Maru is doing a 2 ranks blindly. Now, that's good and bad. Good in that he'll have multiple racks to deal with the impending hatchery. Bad in that he won't have a command center very early on. So even if he does deal with it, that doesn't necessarily mean he's ahead economically. But make no mistake, obviously, this is to get the damage done. He's going for gas back at home, which means Shin is doubling down on the danger. Wait. Did he spot it? He came down the ramp. He didn't see it. He doesn't know. Which might actually be Shin doing a 200 IQ play and putting it further away. Also, if you put it further away, you can't be hit by a siege tank from the high ground, which may be the factor here, but he's gonna see it. Maru! He just ignores it. Maru's so disrespectful to Shin, but now is not the time to be disrespectful. You can't. But the Zerglings are gonna get in the base. If he builds a reactor, if he stays near the reactor, he can actually... Well, there's nothing else producing. I don't know if Shin expected to get this far. He'll wall off with a bunker, which is definitely a stronger choice than trying to slap an add-on down there, or something along those lines. Well, Maru just ignores it. Shin's got a roach one on the way. And to be clear, this is still... He didn't even build a queen over here. So this is kind of a half-assed proxy hatch. I feel like if you're playing against Maru, you got a full ass. All right? Full. 3 roaches, 10 lings on the way. Shin is doubling down. I guess that counts as full. We're getting there. On the interesting counter. But the attack swiftly and strongly, or the ASS counter, is reaching full. But the bunker is enough for now. Oh, the Zerglings finish speed just in time to rip the Reapers apart. Shin, phase 2 has begun. The Overlord was a little bit slow on recognizing the situation. But the second, he's going to try to break through. The Ravager, sacrifices one SCV. He's going to knock out the others. More SCVs are pulled. But the wall is holding. He's targeting the Ravager. And well done. 6 SCVs dead, but the attack is stalled. The Overlord. It's your fault for being late. Shin just absolutely bungled this. This was a pro level bungling. Oh no. What a disaster piece. Shin, well, the fact that Maru went 2 racks was a little unfortunate, but he didn't scout. He didn't have a wall. He lost his, like, this had all the ingredients for success. But, Shin undercooked it. All right. It's raw. And now he's in a bit of an awkward spot. A queen pops out. I didn't ask for this. I didn't ask to be born. None of us did. Oh, shut up, Susan. Half-hearted. There's already 2 siege tanks. He can't deal with it. Maru will kind of casually break out. There's a single creep tumor. He clearly wants another one. That's slightly out of vision, which is a bit of a saving grace, I guess. And he's going to try to protect it with the corrosive bile, which is something. If he knew exactly where it was, he could maybe send a Marine over there and slam it with the siege tanks. In fact, he might still do so. So, the creep tumors will deny... This is actually, I think, 2 scans at least. So, quite a... This is big. This is surprisingly impactful here. The creep is spreading! He needs to stop that tumor! Oh my. Well, I think a single scan should be able to... It gets all 3, and this tumor does not actually block here, so... The creep tumors from the late queen, called in way too late to be helpful with the push, end up being the most important part of all this. But Maru still has a decisive advantage. Simply because Shin is so far behind on the rest of his tech progression. He does have the supply, but all he has is a bunch of sloaches. He's out here in the Stone Age, and Maru has medevacs. Like, it doesn't need any sort of fancy descriptor. He's got flying heal buses. Oh no. Well. The hatchery's targeted. Corrosive Bile's optimistic. The cancel picks up. 1 Marine suffers. The Roaches and Ravagers will all suffer. He's just gonna dance around in the main. Roach speed is still a long way off. 3 Roaches just die with no armor upgrades. The Marines don't even have +1. It's just the quantity of bullets. Drugs and guns. A strong, historical, lore-accurate Terran strategy. Used for centuries. Millennia, even. Another queen. Oh, no! Queen assassinated. Was creeping on the outside here. Somehow the Overlord lives, which is a little offensive. Maru finishes +1 in combat shield. Gonna bring the siege tanks out. Roach speed is done. But, oh my, just slicing through the roaches. Like a bullet knife through butter. Corrosive Bile. Takes about 4 years to land. 2 more Ravagers dead. The rest of the army coming across. Is Maru just bullying Shin across the field. Shin had the hubris to try a proxy hatch. And it should have been a lot more successful than it was, but Shin... The nerves, the anxiety. Relatable and devastating. And now the siege tanks are closing in. There's not that many Marines out in front, but it's just Roach Ravager. And he's already in tank range. Every shot doing terrible, terrible damage. The hatchery under fire. The tanks. Carapace level 1 is not quite done yet. He's forced to commit to most of this fight. Maru, he's starting to thin out. And now that +1 Carapace is done, Shin might be able to stabilize. That's just not enough Marines. The Medivacs are entirely out of energy. Another wave of Corrosive Bile will knock out a tank. He has almost no Marines in front. He's doing a pretty good. He's going to try to save the tanks. He does. So Maru digging a little too deep, a little too greedily. And he doesn't have that much production back at home, which is the only thing keeping Shin going. Shin had 56 drones up against 58 SCVs. Maru with single upgrades. Did he finish the second engineering bay? He just did. Yeah, starts +2 weapons. Infestation pit. Shin? I didn't think he'd make it this far. Shin might be surprised as well, but Maru? He died on that hill. Lost a lot of his momentum in trying to thin it out. He didn't get the hatch. That was the most important part. So, and he doesn't really have the Marine count. In the last games, he's had the Marine count in order to split off 30 of them and still have plenty back at home. But he didn't get his barracks up nearly as quickly. He still was somewhat hamstrung by the early pressure. And losing a few siege tanks as well. Now make no mistake. And he just scanned the main, so he knows exactly the spot he's in. There's no hive on the way, though the infestation pit is done. So Maru still has a couple minutes before he has to worry too much about Vipers. Or maybe even Ultras. And that's enough time to finish +2 weapons and get a lot closer to maxing out. Spots a single Zergling. Concussive shell on the way. Important for those Marauders. Also often overlooked by almost all Terrans. Infestors. Mixed in before the hive as Shin correctly realizes he's going to need something. He can't wait till Vipers. There's going to be another fight beforehand. And this is a huge Zergling counter. Both the timing and the commitment. That's a lot of SCVs. So they'll pull away quickly. Maru actually backs off. And Shin bought himself the most important resource. Time. Scanning forward to make sure an army isn't about to jump him on the field. Shin's still at 66 drones. Desperately trying to get as much out there before Maru's eventual attack. He knows it's coming. The Carapace upgrade is on a precarious Evo chamber. The Infestors... I think he caught a glimpse. Just continually scanning. Maru knocking on the door. There's an Ultralisk Cavern and Vipers on the way. Fungal catches a chunk of the Marines. Gonna throw another one down. That's another chunk. The Roaches and Ravagers are working their way through the siege tanks. The Zerglings will wrap around with a counterattack. And Shin with about the best case scenario. He's really pulling it together. After a devastating start, he's done everything he could to drag this back. And it's starting to look more and more possible. The Ultralisk Cavern is completed. Chitin is plating. On the way. Maru is now mining from his fourth. He still has the economy. He still has 10 more workers and better upgrades. Well, with the 3-2 on the way. The Infestors did survive the fight and have another fungal banked up. The Zerglings in the third base will drag the siege tank fire directly onto the SCVs. I feel like that siege tank got the majority of the kills. With friends like these. Fungal. Yeah, okay. Are they optimism? But the Vipers are out. And that means Maru, with this more conventional ground army, if he wasn't able to break through before with Marines, Marauders, tanks, and medevacs, well, it's only going to get more difficult. With Ultras and Chitinous Plating, with Blinding Cloud, with still Infestors for Fungal, he's still at 67 drones, which is just simply... It's not usually enough. But he's getting everything right now, and it's Maru, who looks like he's floundering a bit. The Ultras, Chitinous Plating is almost completed. He doesn't have Ultra Speed, which still makes it difficult to fight off creep. He didn't have it queued up either. But, of course, on this shoestring budget. No Adrenal Glands, but it's forgivable this time. The tanks will unsiege. He's just going to pick them up and try to escape. A full evacuation as Maru retreats all the way back. Oh, the Viper, full energy Viper gets taken out. A huge snipe. Right before Shin collapses on the planetary fortress. The siege tanks, though, untouched on the high ground. The Ultras try to come around the corner. The planetary will be cut apart. But Maru, the losses were minimal. At least of his army. The Infestors are waiting to try to turn the tables here. And he throws out a Fungal, gets a good hit. The siege tanks at the back. Another Fungal. But the siege tanks exploderating Ultras with each volley. He's coming through the corner. The medevac's obscuring much of the fight. But Shin, he drives directly into the siege tanks. The Ultras did not have speed. The Vipers were knocked out of the sky. The Ravagers get their weird little knees broken, and the concussive shells will make him pay a heavy price on the way back. And suddenly Maru is up 40 supply. Shin felt that maybe he could turn this game and take that elusive, that career-defining victory. But instead, he slips into the chasm of defeat. He loses everything. And he loses the game and his chance to go ahead and take it. We're all tied up 2-2. Maru refuses to die that easily. Shin... And it looked good. Like, you can't even blame him. He had 200 supply. He had a concave of Ultras. It looked like enough. Oh no. 2-2. One game. From either history or history. But will it be his story? Or will it be his story? Maru. Looking shakier than usual, but still solid enough. Shin falling back to the dastardly deeds and bamboozling builds that sometimes end up hurting himself more in his own confusion. He had so many opportunities, but in the end, they eventually slipped. 36 series in a row for Maru. 35 as Terran, 1 as Protoss, which was just a little embarrassing. That was last year's GSL, or RSL, I forget which one, but... By the way, make sure to support the GSL. All this from Patreon. Is why you're watching this here today as well, but I hope you've enjoyed, and I hope I've made a solid chunk of your day at least a little bit better. Like, subscribe. Thank you for watching. It's been an emotional roller coaster. Maru going to be leaning on the Reapers. 2 Rex Reaper, and he's not even walling off with it, which is something. Now, for several years, the 2 Rex Reaper build has been one of the solid builds in the Terran toolkit. It is a minority build for the most part, but almost always walling off the natural. Using those 2 racks to get the wall up early on, so you don't have to worry about it later. But Maru has been doing this on the high ground, which means the Overlord does not scout it. It will scout the severe lack of command center, which is some information in and of itself. So... yes, we know. I don't... Knowing that the command center is that late already gives away that this is likely to be something like the 2 Rags Reaper, and then seeing the second Reaper obviously removes all doubt. So... the amount of pressure you can put on is dramatic, but also, it delays almost everything else. You know exactly where they're going with it. The 2 Rags do not lend themselves to a lot of variety. You're already pretty locked into a follow-up Marine timing, and anything you do besides that is just opening you up for more vulnerable. 3rd command center, of course, on the way. Oh, and the... you want to talk about it, Brenda? No, I don't want to talk about it, Susan. I want to yell about it. Forget I asked. It was more of a rhetorical question. I was just being polite. Now I'm more hurt than if you had said nothing. More hurt than the Reapers? I don't... sorry. Just bouncing around, going for the drone. Speed isn't too far off. There's 16 more lings on the way. Shin at 25 drones, making a huge swell of Zerglings. And they will have speed. Now, can they catch the Reapers on their way back across the map? Maru switching over to Hellions. He's rallying SCVs down. He will lose those SCVs. Trying to intercept the Reapers. He spots them. The Zerglings. He's going for the full surround. This might buy enough tempo, but he gets it. The bounce and the Reapers ripped apart. A single Zergling given the honor of taking out the last one. He's going to go for the main... oh, Maru slams the door in his face. He gets the SCVs out. The Reapers bought the SCVs time with their lives. And, well, Shin can now drone pretty safely. Looks like Maru's just going to go Banshee despite the 2 racks, which is kind of an offshoot of the tech path here. But through all the fire and fury, the Lings are just going to commit. They get into the base. And the Hellions, the line of fire is very good. He loses 0 Hellions. 24 Zerglings dead. I think he got 2 SCVs in that exchange and lost almost all the Zerglings. Shin again. He thought that he could go up the ramp. He could fight on the high ground. But he underestimated Maru's power. A story of his entire career. And now, well, he's built a few rounds of drones, and because Maru went for Banshees, now he's going for a Raven. Means there's no follow-up besides Hellions and that Banshee itself. But it's not going to have Cloak. It's not so many Hellions that Queens and Zerglings can't deal with it. The counterattack Lings are not particularly dangerous. A lair on the way, Roach Warren. The Queens throwing out some knitting needles at the Banshee, and it's not going to have Cloak. It did force out the Spore Crawlers. He's going to come in and try to... get off my creep! Brenda, how did that feel? Fucking amazing! Brenda! It's an hour in. They don't care now. No. It's coming out of your paycheck. We don't get paid. Just like Jimmy. Don't bring him into this. No. Sorry. Losing that first Banshee, which Maru took quite a detour to get the Banshee at all. Getting negative damage by losing it. I don't know if he got maybe one drought. Almost a complete waste. So best case scenario for Shin. Though it's not a game-defining move, but things like that add up. The creeps run going to be sliced away by the Raven and Hellions. The double medevac. Shin up to 74 drones. He's got +1 Carapace. Maru, of course. Double upgrades. Of course, of course. He's going to have an advantage, but not incredibly far ahead. About a minute, 45 seconds maybe. The Marines stimming forward. The Zerglings maybe looking to counter. And Maru, the door. I think Shin keeps hitting the select all army hotkey in a panic. He's trying to come back to defend the auto turrets. In fact, he can target the hatch, and he just gets it. Oh, no. Shin loses the hatch. He loses time. He easily could have gotten into the base and done terrible, terrible damage. The Zerglings are still going to deny the third base for a while. But oh, no. And the command... Well, the orbital command. Maru! 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 Okay, that's a much bigger mistake. Oh, no. Maru was microing his medevacs across the map, and now he's meandered into a massacre. The momentum has massively shifted in Maru. It's a disaster. He lost an orbital command to Zerglings. Oh, no. He was microing the medevacs on the other side of the map. I just assumed. He may have tried to lift, but he was building an SCV, so it takes the extra step canceling said SCV. And I think... Therefore I am. But that brings Shin right back around to at least even. Because he does have the 9 o'clock base. That was Maru's third that he's been kind of cooking up since it was built in the main. Not too long ago, but relatively early on. He didn't have a fourth command center ready to set up. His upgrades are going to be ahead, but not overwhelmingly so yet again. His +2 Carapace is actually ahead of Maru's 2-2 upgrades. Shin, the scan on the main. No infestation pit spotted. There's none to be seen. Maru doesn't know exactly what he's dealing with, but there's a lot coming towards him. Shin again is going to line up for a timing. A layer tech timing. It's not decisively in his favor. But it's pretty good. He's got 50 more army supply. He's got 1-1 versus 1-1. There's 5 siege tanks entrenched. But Shin is maxed out and looking to break a nearly 15-year-long streak. The Roaches and Ravagers from either side. Gonna try to knock out the siege tanks. The Zerglings overwhelming. He's dragging the SCVs off to the side, gutting the siege tank line at the back. The Zerg across the board, and Maru has no tanks left to retreat to. The SCVs are being cut down. Maru is down 100 supply. The Zerg. There are too many of them. He cannot get out. They are coming. Shin. Another wave of corrosive bile. The Liberators trying something. He needs to make sure they're not stacked up. Maru on the ropes. And the Ravagers knock down both Liberators. And call an ambulance. But for the first time in StarCraft 2 history, I think not for Shin. Ragnarok has returned. After 15 plus, I believe it was 2013, their first series. So 13 years of Shin. The Ravager count is too damn high. He sent the medevacs out, but there's no home left to defend. He breaks through, he breaks in, and he breaks years upon years of history. Shin, for the first time in his career, almost over 100 games, 36 series in a row. But nobody beat Shin 37 times in a row. Shin, 3 games, and denies Maru the chance at his 10th GSL Championship. It wasn't the most perfect series. It wasn't a perfect micro or macro, but the drama, the roller coaster, the excitement, the history. I hope it made your day. At least a little bit better. Thank you to GSL. Back again. 16 years. And thank you for watching. We got the means of motivation. It'd be awesome to check out Patreon or YouTube membership. But I hear liking and subscribing is still free. At least for now. And thank you to our meal tier patrons. Maru could have used some more. Big J, Devendor, Kate, Crazy Mouse, Mario Soup. Glad you still enjoy. And make sure to check out Winter Gaming TV for even more strategy games. You still have hours in the day. But, well, you can also check out this video that Jimmy picked out just for you. Thank you for watching. I hope to see you next time. Congratulations to Ragnarok. Good luck. Have fun. Stay chill.